My name is Jeff Erikson. I'm the general manager for client engagement at the Global CCS Institute. And it's a real pleasure to see everyone here in the room today, a packed room today. Really great conversation with a packed room during our networking session yesterday. And it's just a pleasure to be together with everyone once again. I mentioned I'm with the Global CCS Institute. We have partnered with the government of Alberta to put on this workshop today. And they've been a real pleasure to work with. The Institute, you'll hear more about in just a minute, but just to give you some grounding, we're a global think tank. We have a singular mission, which is to accelerate deployment of CCS globally. My job today, you'll see me up here quite a bit, but I won't be speaking too much. I'll leave that to the experts. I'll be kind of the connecting tissue to transition between sessions and to give you some instructions. And I'm going to start out with a couple of instructions on health and safety. First of all, we'll start with health. Washrooms are to the back, through the back doors and out to either side. From a safety standpoint, if there is an alarm or an emergency, facility staff will show up at the back doors. Sit tight until you get instructions from them on where to go, and then follow the instructions that they will provide. There are no planned alarms for today, so if you do hear an alarm or another emergency announcement, it's for real and you should pay attention, sit tight. We've got a really fantastic lineup of speakers today with a singular purpose, and that's to help all of you to participate in various ways in CCUS projects in Alberta, as emitters, as financiers, as technology and service providers, as government officials, to invest in whatever that means for your own organization in deploying CCS in Alberta. And we have a pretty full day today. You'll see some printed agendas on your tables. If you want one of your very own, you can use the QR code that's also at your tables to download an agenda to your phone or other device. We're going to start after I finish here in just a minute with a land acknowledgement and some opening remarks from Shan Pletcher from the province, from the government of Alberta. And then we'll start with some context setting. We're very fortunate today to have the Deputy Minister of Environment and Protected Areas for the province with us, Kasia Piquet, and she'll set the scene for investing in CCUS in Alberta. That will be followed by my colleague with the Institute, Spencer Schecht. Spencer's going to broaden the lens quite a bit, and give you a picture of what's happening around the world with deployment and development of CCUS. And then we'll move into our first panel of the day, which will explore various aspects of the CCUS operating model here in Alberta. We'll take a quick break, and then a panel on carbon pricing, funding, and other incentives that are available. That'll take us up to lunch, and we'll have a full hour for lunch. And that's a great opportunity to have conversations about how you can work with others in the room as we go forward. We're grateful to Emissions Reduction Alberta for sponsoring our lunch today. When we reconvene, we'll start with a panel on everyone's favorite topic after lunch, regulation and risk management. And that'll be followed by a roundup of some of the capture technologies that are available in the marketplace. And finally, we'll provide a wrap up and a finish by 4:15. We got a bit of a late start this morning, so couldn't get closer to 4:30 by the time we finish up. So we've got a lot to cover. There are 4 things that you all can do to help us have a successful day today. The first, actually, my notes say begin on time to end on time. And I'm going to stick with that. What I mean by that is we have short breaks, 15 minutes. It would be great if we get folks back in the seats within that 15 minutes so we can start after the breaks on time. If you're in the middle of a business deal, by all means, finish it. And then come back when you're done and you can share what you've done with us. Second thing you can do is engage with the panelists, engage with each other, and that's really the value of all of us getting together today. Third is when you ask a question, and I'll go through in a few minutes how that's going to work, be concise and ask the question rather than make a statement. If you want to make a statement, there's plenty of time to do that during lunch and other networking opportunities. And fourth, I would invite all of you to follow up after the conference with government officials, with potential CCUS project partners, and with those of us here at the Institute. And I'm going to ask for folks from the Global CCS Institute and the province of Alberta government, just to raise your hand so you can see who we are. Great, there's plenty of us scattered around the room. So just a note on these two QR codes, again, they are at your tables. I've already talked about downloading the agenda. The way the Q&A is going to work today, if you have a question that comes up during a session or perhaps even before a session, you can open up the QR code that says questions and enter your question there. They will be moderated, and when we see common themes, we will select them, and then they will be fed to the moderator. So we're not going to be running mics around the room and standing up and asking questions live, but you can do that through that function through the QR code. First time that I've experienced that, and probably true for others in the room, so be patient as we kind of sort that out. One last thing, if you are tweeting anything here, please use the hashtag that's up on the screen, hashtag Alberta CCUS. And now it's my pleasure to hand off to Shan Pletcher, the CCUS liaison and climate change engineer from the Albertan Environment and Protected Areas. Shan.
Let us acknowledge this land we call Alberta as we gather in person in Calgary and virtually from all across this wonderful province. We also acknowledge the First Peoples who have lived on this land for many generations and were shaped by this land. We are all connected to the land. We acknowledge the people of Treaty 4, Treaty 6, Treaty 7, Treaty 8, and Treaty 10, namely the Blackfoot Confederacy of the Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, Stoney Nakoda, and Tsuut'ina Nation, and the Métis people of Alberta. We are grateful for all the people who have lived in and cared for this land for generations, and for those who have gone before us and those who are still with us today. We are so very excited to have all of you here for this Alberta CCUS workshop. We thank you for taking the time to be here personally and virtually. There's so many specialists and generalists needed for all the aspects of CCUS. And those include people with firms looking to invest in capture or carbon hubs or pipelines, also technology providers for capture, but also for measurement and analysis, and downhole tubulars and instrumentation. There's researchers, there's funders and regulators and policy developers, and many more that I'm probably not including here. Service providers of all types. CCUS includes the capture of carbon dioxide from post-combustion of fuel, like this dragon. Also from the pre-combustion, or from industrial processes such as hydrogen manufacturing, or directly from the atmosphere. It includes the transportation of CO2, and in Alberta, that's always through pipelines. Then there's the geological sequestration or injection of CO2 into deep saline aquifers or salty underground rivers. That's what we call dedicated storage. And so what I've described is the CCS part that we think of. But then there's the U in the CCUS. And that's the utilization component. And that includes making a product from the captured CO2, or from making use of that CO2 by injecting it into oil reservoirs and helping that oil to become more viscous and pushing more oil to the producing wells. This is most often called enhanced oil recovery, or EOR. When CO2 is geologically sequestered or stored, it can be physically trapped by the structure, or it can become soluble in the reservoir water, and eventually mineralized with the rock. The purpose of today's workshop is to establish a better understanding of the business opportunities associated with CCUS in Alberta. And to get an overview of policy and funding incentives related to CCUS and the regulatory framework and requirements that are needed. To hear about some of the new projects and to hear about technologies and to understand some of the risks that we should consider. As mentioned before, this workshop is organized by the Alberta government and the Global CCS Institute. And I believe Jeff mentioned that the Institute is an international think tank that's backed by government and businesses. And it's their sole mission to accelerate the deployment of CCUS. So our master of ceremonies for the workshop is the general manager of client engagement for the Global CCS Institute. And he's well known internationally in the CCS world. If you watch the presentation on the global status of CCS report for 2022, you'll recognize him. He joined the Institute in January of 2016, and he's responsible for the growth and membership of the Institute. And that currently is numbered at more than 170 companies and governments. So I'll turn it back to our MC, Jeff Erikson.